The very first class that I ever played in Dungeons and Dragons was a wizard. Technically, back then they were called magic users, but the very first class I ever played in 5th edition was a wizard. Why? Because magic. Magic is what draws me to the fantasy setting because it's centered around creativity, breaking rules, doing things you're not supposed to be able to do. It's what puts the fantastic in fantasy for me. So in this video, I'm going to go over the changes in the latest UA that came out about the wizard, One D&D's take on some of those changes there, and we're going to see if I like them, see if it meets the need, see if it adds up. We're getting big brain on this one, so stick around. Right off the bat, at level 1, we have perhaps the wizard's most signature thing they're known for, and that is their spellbook. It's a feature called Wizard Spellbook. And right in this area, you have all of the nitty-gritty rules from learning spells from spell scrolls and spellbooks that you find to anything else creative that your dungeon master throws your way, to even using your spellbook as a spellcasting focus, which I think is good from a mechanical standpoint. Might be a little weird to take a book out in the middle of combat and read something at an enemy, but hey, you know what? If that's what does it for you, that's fine. It just seems a little odd. But one little pet peeve I have from the whole 1D&D experience, just from the beginning, is one thing that I thought that made wizards special was that they prepared spells, at least in terms of comparing them to other arcane casters like the sorcerer or the bard or the warlock. And now it seems like everybody prepares spells, and something about that just feels a little weird to me. I don't know. That's sort of what made wizards special, sort of what made them stand out. But I'm curious if this is just like a me thing or if you might feel the same way, and I would love to hear your thoughts about that in the comment section below. At level 2, wizards get access to a feature called Academic, and I think that makes sense. Let's take a look at what that does. Your time as a scholar has equipped you to recall a broad range of lore. When you take the study action, you have advantage on any intelligence check you make as part of that action. Yeah, sure. I'm down with that. Moving on to the level 5 feature, we have a feature called Memorize Spell, which for old school D&D players like myself, the term memorize is just really nice to see when it comes to the wizard. Let's take a look at what it does. It's a 3rd level divination spell, which is a ritual spell, and it's unique to the wizard class. It has a casting time of 1 minute. You choose one spell from your spellbook that you don't have prepared, and you choose another spell you do have prepared. The unprepared spell replaces the prepared spell on your list of prepared spells. This replacement lasts until you cast Memorize Spell again or finish a long rest. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 4th level or higher, you can replace an additional prepared spell with an unprepared spell for each slot level above 3rd. This feature is pretty interesting to me, and it is a way in which wizards still can be separate from the other arcane casters, kind of like what I was saying was just kind of bugging me before, because they might be the only class that's going to be able to switch spells out in the middle of an adventuring day. Sure, it's going to take a minute to do it, so it's not something you can do in the middle of combat, but if you have the extra 10 minutes it takes to do a ritual, you kind of can do this as needed. In the middle of a dungeon or in the middle of just anything that time really isn't an issue, this is a really useful thing to have. So I'm all about this. Plus, like I said, they called it Memorize Spell. Got the nostalgia factor. I like that. At level 7, we get a very cool feature called Modify Spell, and that's a 4th level spell that we're going to take a quick look at right now before we talk about what I think about it. Modify Spell is a 4th level transmutation spell. It's a ritual spell, and it's unique to the wizard class. It has a casting time of 1 minute, and using arcane formulas in your spellbook, you magically alter one arcane spell you have prepared. You can change the spell's color, sound, and smell, and you make one of the following modifications to the spell. Components. Remove one of the spell's components. Verbal, somatic, or material. You can't remove the material component of a spell that consumes that component. That makes sense. Concentration. If the spell requires concentration, damage can't break your concentration on the spell. Damage type. If the spell has a damage type, replace it with one of the following types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, poison, or thunder. If the spell has multiple damage types, you can change only one of them. Range. If the spell has a range of at least 5 feet and doesn't have a range of self, increase its range by a number of feet equal to 30 times your wizard level. Ritual. If the spell lacks the ritual tag and has a casting time of at least 10 minutes, give it the ritual tag. Targets. If the spell affects one or more creatures and doesn't have a range of self, it now affects only your allies or enemies. Choose which when you cast Modify Spell. The chosen alteration lasts until you cast Modify Spell again or you finish a long rest. This altered version of the spell can't be added to a spellbook or spell scroll without first casting Create Spell. At higher levels, when you cast this spell using a spell slot of 5th level or higher, you can choose an additional spell modification for each slot level above 4th. Wow, that feature is jam-packed with a ton of possibilities. You can remove the need for a verbal or somatic component of a spell? That's incredible. You can increase a spell's range. You can change damage type. You want to have lightning ball instead of fireball? Well, how about necrotic ball? Because you can do that too. Or how about the concentration one where damage can't break your concentration? High haste? Yeah, this is exactly what I think of when I think of how a wizard would alter spells. We're not talking about the sorcerer where they just like twin something or like distance something. This is like formulaic. This is like, I'm a mad scientist going, well, I'm just gonna move this glyph into this category here, and now, oh man, look at that. Now damage can't break my concentration. That is exactly how I see a wizard approaching magic. And I'm in love with this. The thing that makes it even more cool is that at level 9, wizards get a feature called Create Spell. Let's read that before we really dive into it. Create Spell is a 5th level transmutation wizard spell. It's a reaction in response to you casting Modify Spell. The component cost is an arcane focus, which the spell consumes worth at least 1,000 gold pieces per level of the spell altered by Modify Spell. So this is going to be pretty expensive. Duration, it's a concentration spell up to an hour. Synthesizing your arcane knowledge and power, you strive to create a new spell. To succeed, you must concentrate for 1 hour and meditate on the spell you just altered with Modify Spell. Otherwise, this spell fails. If you succeed, you must start casting Scribe Spell within the next 10 minutes and add the altered spell to your spellbook. Once the spell is in your spellbook, it becomes one of your known spells. It gains the wizard source tag rather than the arcane tag, and it gains a name of your choice. Well, there you have it. You want your wizard's name to be mentioned with Mordenkainen, with Adaluk, with Melf, and all of these other wizards that you see in the spell lists of Dungeons & Dragons. Now you can either build upon their work or create your own modified versions of things. One thing I think is pretty neat is it can be expensive, so it's not as if there's not a cost associated with it, which wizards are easily the most gold needy class of the game. But could you modify a modified spell that you created and then create a modified version of the spell you modified and created previously? You follow me on that? How far can you take this? This is what it is to play a wizard. I love this. The rest of the things really in this UA are just some like rearranging. Some stuff have moved from like say 18th level to 15th level, like spell mastery. Capstone things like signature spells have been moved from 20th level to 18th level, just like every other class has had. And the most notable subclass change that I could see is the naming convention's a little bit different. So instead of School of Evocation, it's called Evoker. And then you actually get 2 spells from the school you choose as your subclass of that school, because that's what you should get if you're specializing in something. You should be better at it. And yeah, there's some other little tweaks and things like that, which I'm curious to see how they do modify other stuff. I'm also curious to see if there going to be spells for like, say, a blade singer or, you know, a war wizard that doesn't belong to a specific school. Or are they just going to maybe pick a couple or like give you a list? Maybe it'll be like a always prepared spell list, kind of like paladins, their oath spells work. I'm curious about that. I'm curious to see how you might approach that if you were designing this. But overall, I have to say I kind of love these changes. Like, love these changes. I don't know exactly how somebody who's just sitting there power gaming the heck out of it and wants to game the system is going to maybe abuse this stuff, but isn't that kind of the whole point of playing a wizard? A wizard is looking to like power game life. That's why temptation for power is so strong with them. Either way, I want to hear your thoughts on the direction it looks like we're headed in when it comes to the wizard, because this has renewed a fire in me to want to play a wizard. Like, it's always been my favorite class, and this makes me kind of love it even more. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you made it to the end, give me 3 different emojis that you think represent a wizard or a wizard that you have played in the past. This way I know you watched the whole thing. All right? Take care, everyone.